Hey everyone. As you could probably tell from the thumbnail of this video, this is going to be a little bit. Oh, hi Sam. A little bit of a different. I'm gonna apologize in advance. This is probably going to be a messy and very rambly video. Um, as any of you who are plugged into the Universus Facebook groups or their official Facebook or the Discord or I'm sure Twitter or X, whatever that's being called now. I'm not on it, so I don't know. There's been some news and updates that have been, I wouldn't say causing a panic. I might say causing a panic. Been causing stress in the community writ large, and I kind of just wanted to. It's been weighing on me a little bit. I kind of wanted to just at least get my thoughts out. I thought maybe talking them through to a camera to you guys, I guess, would help maybe unmuddle the thoughts in my head, because the way my mind works, it's kind of like a storm that everything's kind of happening at once, and sometimes you need to focus. Excuse me. Say hi, Sam. But recently there have been two new articles released, one involving organized play going forward in this season, the upcoming season 2 for regionals and so forth, and then one going over some changes that are going to be made in game design. I'm not going to read through these. Obviously you're seeing me and not like a screenshot. I don't want to read through all of these because I'm sure better people than I could explain how these are going to go. I will link the articles in the description below. And I might link, if I remember to do it, I'll link Tim Keefe's news update video, because on second thought, I think that only covered organized play, because I think that dropped the same day that the game design thing dropped. I'm not entirely sure. I'll try to remember to link it. It's Satonis on YouTube. He always does really good news update videos. He's well plugged into the community, way better than I am. I am a hermit, after all. So if I can remember, future me, please, remember to link that so you can check that out too. He'll go over some of the things in more detail than what's just in the article. But the first one that had people, let's say, up in arms, was the organized play for Season 2. We had been waiting for solid dates and venues for the regionals for Season 2, and we still hadn't received any of that, so that's what we thought this update was going to be. And it turns out there's going to be some major changes, the first of which is for major regionals, the in-persons, they're not requiring you to make your 2 seasonal point threshold in order to qualify. They will be, I don't know about free to enter, because if it's at a convention like Level Up, you might have to get a badge, but you don't have to qualify for major regionals anymore. That was a big issue that people were having. They couldn't meet the 2 seasonal point threshold, which for people like me who have a locals, I have a locals at One Stop Anime in Norman, Oklahoma, and about an hour and a half away, or 2 hours away in Tulsa, there's another locals that I could go play at if I took the time. So for me, and for people like me who have a locals that do these local championships, local qualifiers, this wasn't an issue, but there were quite a few people, and for a while I was one of them, that don't have a locals, or don't have enough people at their locals to run these events, because you'd have to have at least 8 people, or at least 6 people, in order to have them qualify for the seasonal points. So I can very well understand that. My locals are still really small. I think we get anywhere between 3 and maybe 6 people at a time. And that's if people from Tulsa don't come down and help bolster our numbers, because we kind of try to trade off to make sure that enough people can get to each one so that both of our stores can qualify for things. I kind of slacked off a little bit in Season 1 due to some travel that I was doing, but I was hoping to jump back into it in Season 2. However, with this being a big thing. You don't have to get your seasonal points for major regionals. They also canceled all future webcam regionals, which is kind of a bummer. More than kind of a bummer. The Season 1 webcam regional was my first time playing on webcam, and I actually had a blast. I got to talk with a bunch of people, some of them who have actually seen my videos. Love you guys. But it felt like I was finally stepping, as Chris Smith would say, off my mountain, and interacting with the community. It felt great, and I was looking forward to more. So that sucks, and a lot of people are upset about it, because if you're like me and you either don't have a local or you don't have a hyper-competitive local, this was how you practiced. This is how you prepared for bigger events. Granted, the community is going to be putting on their own events. Creators like Tamron Cardwell, David Toombs at Let's Talk UVS, they're planning on doing webcam tournaments and webcam tournament circuits. So that's always going to be cool. But having something that was from the company that earned you something that you could, put towards nationals, nationals points, because your seasonal points always transfer into championship points at the end of each season. So if you're on that grind of trying to get as many points as possible, you want to play in as many events as possible. And I believe Josh Massey, according to this, is the new senior manager of organized play. He said that since we don't have to rely on webcam regionals, we can actually play in-game, in-person events. It's more, I don't know, the reasoning is we don't have to do these anymore. We're not relegated specifically to them like we were in the pandemic, and since they're not forcing you to qualify for major regionals, the one SP that you get for the webcam regionals shouldn't really matter. But I feel like there's a bit of a fault in that logic, because I don't think that's exactly why people... That's not the only reason people did that. So, I don't know. It feels... To me, that feels a little... I wouldn't say half-hearted, because I don't know Mr. Massey. And before I go any further, I'm not here to throw shade or condemnation at anyone at the company or the company itself. I'm merely offering my perspective, and I'm not attacking anyone else in the community, but these are just, like, the thoughts going off in my head, kind of how I see things, and hopefully, like, having multiple people making videos and articles about these things can offer a perspective not only for other players, but maybe if people in the company see these too, maybe we can kind of get our voices heard. But I do believe that it has to be done in a constructive manner. I'm really not one who likes to doomsay. Some people at my locals say that I'm a little bit too optimistic with the game sometimes, especially when there's drama surrounding the company or decisions made. I don't like to think that I'm optimistic per se. I do want to have faith that the people running the company know what they're doing, the people making the game know what they're doing, or at least have the best intentions for the game at heart. But my other reasoning is, what else is there? I mean, it's either have faith, hope for the best, and try to make the best of it, or give up the game. I've been playing this game for almost 10 years now. In my opinion, this is the best game I've ever played. I love it. I still play a little bit of Yu-Gi-Oh! Online on the side, but I have nostalgia. So, but, I love this game. And I've worked really, really hard to try to generate my own little community here. So my locals can tell you that I tried building a community at several different stores before finally finding a home at One Stop. Even going back and forth between here in Oklahoma City, where I live, Norman, Oklahoma, and Tulsa. I'd go to Tulsa every other week before I found out about Dice Addiction up in Tulsa, and I would do demo days all Saturday at Alien Games in Jenks, Oklahoma, every other Saturday. Just, mind you, 2 hours away, And I'd go twice a month to try to build a community for this game. So my whole spiel is, I've put enough effort into this game. I feel like I have a bit of a stake in it. I want to see the game succeed. I want to see the company succeed and make good decisions. I want to see this game grow, and I want to see the community grow. So I'm not going to doomsay. I'm not going to, with every decision I don't agree with, I'm not going to say the apocalypse is nigh, the game is over. Because I've invested too much into that at this point, and I really want to see it do good. And that's what I'm going to try to do. So I always try to go through things as logically as possible. I have a cat sleeping on my lap, so I think he senses I'm stressed. But yeah, so I've seen a lot going on, and it just seems like every time the company tries to change something, maybe it's a minority, but there's a vocal minority that seems to just doomsay and say that they're jumping to other card games, or this card game's now dead. And personally, I don't like that. I want to sit back and wait and see what happens, especially since I'm the type of person who, if I don't have all the information, I'm not going to make too poignant a decision. Because, well, personal reasons that I can get into if you know me. But I like to have as much information as possible before I make a judgment call. And right now, all we have is that we have a brand new senior manager of organized play. He has not been working for UVS Games long. So this is his first act, I believe. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong, please. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I never want to give out false information intentionally. If I'm incorrect, please gently correct me. I don't say anything that is wrong intentionally. I don't try to mislead anybody. But he, in the article, he does say that he wants to move forward with the 2024 cycle. They've changed some dates, but they do want to make organized play as best as possible. It doesn't say anything about local organized play, because I know there's been issues getting promos to stores, because they were doing like that monthly promo, for one new promo each month, which I kind of like, because then if you have a locals and you go once a week, by the end of the month you get a playset of that card, which is cool. I like that. But we didn't have anything for April. We haven't had anything for May. So I was hoping to see something on the local side as well, because I think that's kind of the backbone of your whole game. So hopefully we'll hear some more about that in the future. But a lot of people were upset about the no more webcam regionals, and another thing that the article doesn't mention is nationals. You still, as far as I'm aware, need to qualify for nationals with, I believe it's 10 championship points, which, again, if you don't have a locals and you were kind of depending on the SP that you would get from a webcam regional, especially if you placed well in a webcam regional, getting that championship points, if that was how you were going to earn your way into the nationals, that avenue's closed for you right now, and that sucks. I was fortunate enough to do well enough in my webcam regional that I don't have to worry about that. So I will be at nationals. I don't think I'm going to make it to any other in-person regionals this year due to some financial issues, and I'm not going to be able to make the points race anyway, and that was going to be my whole reason for grinding this out this year. So I'm just going to shoot my shot at nationals and hopefully make it. But yeah, so some bumpy stuff in organized play, and I apologize. I know you can probably see the runtime. This is going to be a longer video, and I ramble, and I'm sorry for that. But this is just as much a video for me as it is for you guys, hopefully. But moving on, so yeah, a lot of people are upset about some of the changes to organized play. I do think that not qualifying for major regionals is good, because that'll hopefully draw more players, and you'll have bigger events and show that this game has a lot of staying power. But I still think you should have the webcam regionals, even if it's just for the CP so that people can try to qualify for nationals. Or, if you're in that points race for Worlds, that could be some crucial points that you could need to help get you ahead. So maybe that was part of the reasoning, but again, the article doesn't say anything about that. So I don't know. So maybe they'll bring them back. I don't want to say that the backlash will have them bring it back, but maybe they'll see, oh, these events served more of a purpose than just we have to do webcam regionals because we can't play in person, and people are getting the one seasonal point just to make it to their major regionals, in-person regionals. So maybe, who's to say? Maybe this is Mr. Massey trying to fix some things in the immediate, and hopefully 2025's organized play will be even better, even more solid, because, again, if I'm not mistaken, he came in after some of these plans were already in place, so it's kind of like he's working with the hand he's dealt. So if that's the case, I think we should show grace for that, because if you've ever had to pick up a job that someone else had half done and try to finish it, you know that sometimes there's some issues, finding your feet, growing pains, whatever you want to call it. So I think we should have some grace for that, because maybe Mr. Massey is just trying to make the best out of the situation he's been given in order to benefit the majority of people. And maybe some things were forgotten about, or maybe some things just had to be sacrificed, and there is a greater good in the future. Only the future will tell. And then the other game article, the one for game design, was from Bill Stark. I believe he's the new head of game design. Excuse me. Also, if I happen to butcher anybody's names, I apologize. You would think that someone who wants to be a writer would be good with names and pronunciations. Names are a struggle of mine. So if I do mispronounce anyone's names, I apologize. Please feel free to correct me in the comments. Names are not a specialty of mine. But Mr. Stark is the director of game design, and he had an article. I guess he's going to be doing a full article series, and I believe it's going to be every week, because at the end of the article, he says that he's got a second article out next week. But this one goes over memory in game design and how the average person can only hold 5 to 7 things in short-term memory, and kind of does a breakdown of what he's calling mental load. I don't know if this is a technical term or if it's just the term he chose to use. I'm not a psychologist or a psychiatrist. I am just a schmuck that plays games and makes videos on YouTube. But basically saying that for newer players, I'm going to break this down to the very barest of bones, that the game is struggling to onboard new players and keep them engaged because it's complicated. It's a complex game. I'm not going to argue that. The game is complex. It does have its complexities. Bit of backstory. Hi, Cameron Undergust. I'm the UVS Hermit. And in my middle school to high school years, I played Yu-Gi-Oh! I played Yu-Gi-Oh! For 15 years until it became too expensive for me. I wasn't able to do a lot of tournaments because I was always judging, and then my local scene got really toxic. So I dropped Yu-Gi-Oh!, sold all my stuff, and a friend of mine, if anyone knows Brett Hillman, I went to church with his wife Rebecca, and she said, hey, my boyfriend at the time, now husband, plays this game, you should check it out. So I did. It was called Universal Fighting System, or UFS, and I saw what it was about, different IPs battling it out, and I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. So I decided to give it a shot. I bought a booster box of Mega Man Rise of the Masters and a Dr. Wily starter deck. And I taught myself how to play. By taught myself, I mean I took the fold-out, because the deck didn't come with a rule book, it came with a fold-out, one of those papers that folds like 19 times, front and back, I read that about 6 times. I opened all my packs, read what the cards did, and I attempted to teach myself as someone who's never played a game like this, coming from a background of a game that is incredibly different, how to play this game. No, you're done? Okay. So yeah, the game's complicated. I wouldn't say the game is hard per se, because I believe there's two... This game is a game of two halves. You have your rhythm of the game, and then you have your nitty-gritty, your... like the paint. You have the wireframe, and then you have the papier-mâché, the paint that makes it all pretty. I believe the rhythm of the game, playing out your foundations, playing an attack, making a check. Once you get the rhythm of the game, I feel the rhythm is simple. The complexity comes with, as Mr. Stark puts in his article, all of the other things you have to keep track of, all of the different effects for the different cards that are on the field at either stage. You know, how many cards your rival has in their hand, what cards you have in your hand, all your enhances. That's the complicated part. But I believe the core basics of this game, aside from if you're not good at math, which sometimes I struggle with. I married an accountant for a reason. But once you get the rhythm of the game, the rhythm is easy. And the complexity comes later as you learn, as you try to figure things out for yourself and find your own groove within that rhythm. I say I tried to teach myself how to play this game. Like I said, I read the front and back sheet several times. I had a couple of friends who also had quit Yu-Gi-Oh! At the time, and I said, hey, I'm learning to play this new game. Let's learn together. Let me teach you. Mind you, I had no idea what the hell I was doing. And I tried to teach these people how to play the game. And to say we unintentionally cheated a lot would be an understatement. Yeah, I think the only reason I won most of my games was because I didn't know what I was doing, and no one else knew that what I was doing was illegal. Including me. But, oh, and if this tells any of you old heads how long ago this was, they had just started previews for Street Fighter the 30th Anniversary Edition, which I believe premiered between Red Horizon Blood Omen and Cowboy Bebop. That's how long ago this was. Tim Keefe had just won Worlds with Pharaoh Man. And I knew I'd picked a good character, because Pharaoh Man's my favorite Mega Man original game's Robot Master. And he is the main reason I joined the game, because I saw they had Pharaoh Man. And then, after building a Pharaoh Man deck and trying to learn the game, I saw that someone won Worlds with Pharaoh Man, and I was like, oh, I must have good instincts for this. And I will say that I believe I do have good instincts for this game. I may not make the best decks, I may not make the best plays, but on the whole, generally speaking, I think I'm pretty alright at this game. Some of my locals really try to hype me up to the point of being rude about it, but I believe I'm pretty good at this game. But I'm also the type of person who can't focus on one thing at a time sometimes. Some of my friends who knew me from the Yu-Gi-Oh! Days would often see me at the local card shop playing up to, I think my greatest was 9. 9 games at once. And I don't mean, like, it's 9 opponents against my one deck. I mean, I had, my average was about 5. 5 different decks against 5 different people playing matches simultaneously. And unless I was paired against someone who I normally wouldn't beat anyway, like one of the better local players who, like, really put money and time into the game, unless I was paired against one of those people, I won. Because my brain, for some reason, can focus on stuff like that, where I have the multiple sets of things to keep track of. My brain really adapts to stuff like that. Last year, I tried to get into Battle Spirits. Battle Spirit Saga, I think it's a Bandai game. But I played in a Battle Spirits tournament and a Universes tournament simultaneously. And I would have one match on my left and one match on my right, and I played 2 separate games, 2 separate matches, and I would win both. Because that's just how my mind works. So I understand that I'm not the rule. Maybe I'm more the exception. But I enjoy the complexities of this game, and I tell people that once you get the rhythm, everything else kind of falls into place later as you grow as a player. But, like I said, I'm going to ramble. But I actually bothered the official Jasco, back when this was Jasco Games, I bothered their official Facebook group so much that they sent me to Shane Duckworth. They said, hey, look this guy up on Facebook, add him as a friend, go ask him your questions. And God bless Shane Duckworth. I bothered him at least twice a day, sending him pictures of cards, asking questions about how effects worked, because Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a chain link system, you know, this responds to this, and then you resolve everything back in reverse order. Universes is more of a window system, and I had trouble early on wrapping my head around that, which is why when I host demos now, I make a point to explain that in the bare basics as I can. And by the way, personal plug, if you do struggle, if you're learning how to play this game, and for some reason you're watching this video, I will link my How to Play playlist, the Hermit School of Universes, where I try to break down all of the basics of how to play this game, basics of effects, anatomy of cards, turn cycle, everything, into the barest bones and most easily digestible way that I can think of to do. I'll try to link that playlist below. I have a lot of links. I need to start making notes or something to help people learn as easily as possible. But where was I? Oh, right. Shane. And that man is so patient. I believe he works as one of the game designers right now for UVS Games. He's a great dude. He's awesome. But I bothered this man so much. Mainly just trying to figure out, like, to imprint in my brain how specific things work. Because that's just how I learn. I just need to feed off of more information and change my understanding of the situation. I bothered him so much that he knew me before he met me. My friend Jared and I, who went to Vegas with me recently, our very first tournament was a world championship because it was free. You could just walk in, show them you had a deck for Universus. Not only would you get into the tournament for free, but you also got a 3-day pass to the Level Up Expo. It was insane back in the day. It was the Wild West. But I was watching my friend play, and he had to call a judge. Well, the judge who walked over was Shane. And after Shane did his judge call, answered the question, my friend pointed at me and goes, yeah, by the way, this is, and Shane, without letting him finish, looked dead at me and goes, I know who he is. And I felt about that big. But he was real cool about it. He was glad that we were able to make it, and that we were having a good time, and it was good to see us, and Shane's a cool dude. Anyone who knows Shane's a good dude. But that's when I realized, at that tournament, mind you, you go to Worlds, you're there to win Worlds, right? I mean, that's kind of why you go to Worlds. We were two know-nothing people with no experience, no play group, and I had just barely taught him how to play, and I barely knew how to play. And the community was so patient with us, always making sure we were having a good time. We were just cracking jokes, laughing. I think I went 3-3, or 4-4 it might have been. I broke even, which was amazing for me. And that's when I realized something, that this one thing I brag about whenever I talk to people about this game is how cool the community is. How we have one of the least toxic communities of any game I've ever known. You know, you always hear about the toxicity, the hyper-competitive people, the tryhards, the sharks, you know, all sorts of bad stuff. And I tell people we have one of the coolest communities ever. Because, on the whole, generally, they're some of the most accepting, helpful people. You see that in the Discord whenever there's new players always offering advice on decks, or how characters are supposed to be played, or learning materials, stuff like that. When One Stop was starting to kind of pick stuff up, I was ecstatic, and I wouldn't say bragging, but I was celebrating on Facebook, and Miles Tyler from Legendary Wolf Games offered to send us a huge box of bulk that they had, so that the store would have stuff to sell. Granted, my store doesn't sell singles, but we have that box full of bulk that any person can come in and take singles from if they need for free. It's a great resource for new players. And he didn't have to do that. He just said, hey, what's your store's address? I will send them this. And that could have been money for him. He didn't care. He wanted to help. And 95% of this community is people who want to help and see the game grow. You've got creators like Tim Keefe, who is just always on top of the news to spread it around to people who might not be as plugged in. You've got Chris Smith and Matt Childress from Universes Academy, who have been doing content creation for a whole long time. I met Chris through his old podcast, The Guile Treatment. That's where I became a fan and started bothering him, and then I started seeing him at events, and, well, he's kind of the reason I'm here. If anyone saw my retro story of how I left my deck behind when I went to Worlds one year, Chris Smith was my knight in shining armor, helping me out and giving me one of the best tournament runs of my life. And he's the one who eventually pushed me into content creation. He told me several times, get off your mountain, come join everybody. So I'm here. But I love this community. And to see it kind of devolve into... and I get memes are memes. Okay, I've recently got that memes are memes. I am kind of an old person, and ways of the internet are still somewhat foreign to me. I am a hermit by nature, so I'm still learning on some of that. But a lot of the whole, we're jumping ship, we're going to this game or that game, I don't find that that's helpful. I believe if you have a legitimate criticism or concern, absolutely bring that up, but try to do it in a constructive way where it doesn't just sound like you're yelling at the company or bashing the company. And I'm not saying everyone's doing that. Obviously, a lot of people are just doing jokes for joke's sake. That's 100% fine. But it's just sometimes when you get a lot of that negativity, especially for a new player, a lot of that doomsaying makes people think, well, what did I just jump into? Did I just jump into a sinking ship? And that's not healthy to help grow the game either. And I see that they're kind of wanting to, quote, simplify some things, which, let's be honest, some things of the game are really complicated. We had in Retro the multiple keyword. That keyword took me the longest to understand because the rulebook was written like a legal text and was about that thick. So it hurt my brain. But now we have Echo. Moving forward, they kind of retrained multiple into Echo. It is less powerful, but it's entirely simpler. And I think that's a great change. I think simplifying some of the more complex abilities like that are great. They're easier for newer players to pick up and run with. And if they ever want to try the older, more chaotic versions, Retro is still a format. I'd love to see it as like a circuited format. I think that'd be amazing. Because I love Retro and I love all that insanity. I often describe it as, think of all of the best players in the game dropping weights like they're Rock Lee about to fight Gaara. That's Retro format. It is nuts. And I'm absolutely here for that kind of chaos. But yeah, I do love how this game, the community writ large, treats its newcomers. I've been running demos for 5 years for this game now, I think. I think I've been playing for 7, doing demos officially for 5. I've demoed for several stores. I've even demoed at conventions. Which, while fun, oh boy, there's a reason I don't volunteer for those much anymore. Because 12 to 14 hour days suck, even if you're doing something you love. But one thing I do for new players is I'll do a demo, and if they like the game, I know how expensive it is to start a new game, especially if you have nothing. So what I do for my demos is if someone really wants to play the game, I take my stock, which is a giant gym duffel bag full of runners. Each runner is a different set. I let them pick a character out of my character book, which has every character standard legal, and I will build them a beginner-friendly deck for that character to start with. I will teach them how to play that character that they like. You know, if it's their favorite character, or if they don't care about the characters and they just have a specific play style, I will build them an easy-to-learn beginner's deck with that character, and I give that to them for free. I used to do things like buying people Clash decks to get them started, buying people packs, and then my back started hurting carrying around all my stuff, and I thought I could unload some of this. And that's what I did. I've built probably over 100 decks for new players just at demos between the conventions and the stores. So that's what I mean. I was inspired by all of the generosity and the acceptance that this community showed me. I wanted to pass that along. So to see the community kind of go mad, for lack of a better term, especially when we're constantly trying to bring new people in. The Discord has new people joining every day. And I get that there are legitimate criticisms, not just for the game, but some of the decisions made by the company. That is fair and valid. I'm just saying that sometimes when we doomsay or we just start screaming about it, might not be the best. That will scare new people off more than the complexity of the game. Because the complexity, you can get better at it. You can learn more. The chaos and negativity can just be absolutely draining. As someone who a lot of this chaos and negativity has weighed on me for the past 2 days, and that's why I'm sitting here at my computer doing this video instead of finishing my Girl Power Day 0 builds. I'm not slacking. All of them will be out before full release day, because technically this week's the pre-release. Thank you, UVS Games, for kicking it back a week for me, even though they didn't do it for me. Don't blame me. But it does help me out a little bit. But yeah, circling back to Bill Stark's article, he does say that there is a lot of stuff that you have to remember, and that can be really daunting for new players. He does say they want to streamline the game a little bit more, so that they can onboard new players. New players are staying more engaged, but they don't want to oversimplify it so that those of us who enjoy the complexity of the game, like me, I absolutely adore that there's multiple ways to play each character. You're not really worried about cookie cutter decks, or like net decking. I hated that in Yu-Gi-Oh!, where it's just the same 3 decks over and over, and they're all the exact same deck card for card. Like David Toombs Mirio, probably not the same as Christmas Mirio, because as a player, you're allowed to customize it to fit your style a little bit more, and I really enjoy that. Even if it's the same character and the same type of deck, it's not always going to be the same. I love that about this game, how you can just personalize everything. And that's another reason I enjoy this content creation. I love throwing all these different decks ideas out there, be they competitive decks, my Day Zeros, which are just, hey, as a beginner, this is kind of what this character wants to do, so learning about the character. My Bad Ideas Good Times, those are great locals decks, unless your locals don't like Present Mic 2. I learned that the hard way a few weeks ago. No one had fun with that, including me, because everyone was mad at me, so maybe leave that alone unless you absolutely enjoy just making people hate you. But I like retro decks, I like standard decks. Spotlight, not so much. I'll do it, but I mean, the more I have access to make my brain explode, the better for me. Which is why I love retro. Even if that does get a little overwhelming sometimes. But, I lost my thought. Like I said, this video is a mess. But he does say, Mr. Stark does say, going back to the article, that next week we're going to see in the next article some of the tactics they've been using to bridge the gap between, veteran players and new players to try to find a middle ground, a meet in the middle, where new players can pick it up a little bit easier and, streamline the learning process maybe a little bit more without making it feel like it's robbing us of our high ceiling. I like to think of this game as a low ceiling or low floor, high ceiling. Mainly because I think the rhythm is so easy to get. I do understand that, the enhanced step is complicated, doing things back and forth. The effects, I believe, are complicated. The rhythm of the game, play a card, make a check, play a card, make a check, figuring stuff like that out, with the checks and doing the math, committing foundations. I feel once you get that rhythm and you're comfortable with that, then you can start using that as a foundation to build on top of with all of your knowledge of the effects. And start slow. For new players, if you've made it for some reason this far in the video, start slow. Just take it one character at a time, and don't be afraid to ask questions. I know how daunting it can be seeing a whole bunch of different new characters, a whole bunch of different cards. But 9 times out of 10, if you're sitting across from someone playing Universes, that's a cool person. That's a cool person who is absolutely willing to help you learn and grow as a player. I was very lucky to have some people in the online community. I didn't play online, but I would reach out with questions who were absolutely willing to help me out with any question I had. Shane, Chris Smith. That's the main in actual learning how to play the game. But in terms of how to think about the game, I've had very good discussions with Kevin Broberg, Tim Keefe at nationals and regionals, just talking to these people who are way better players than me. And don't get me wrong, they are better players than most of us. They are modest, both of them, but they are quite top-tier people and top-tier players. They're both top-tier people and players. But just chatting with them about the game, and if I'm doing bad and they're having some bad luck, just their attitudes of how they view things can really help bolster people's negative state, I guess. Because at nationals last year, I didn't win a single match. I thought I was prepared. Apparently I wasn't. I didn't win a single game, I don't believe. I got 2-0'd every time. And then I heard that Kevin also wasn't doing so hot. So I walked over to him and I was just chatting with him. And he was like, yeah, this is just not my tournament. I'm just going to let it roll off my back. And sometimes you just have a bad day. And you just can't let it get to you. And coming from someone much more experienced than I was and way more skilled than I was, to hear that, and I know it sounds dumb, but to hear that even they can have bad days and just not let it bother them kind of made me feel a bit more at peace for having my bad day. So, yeah, the community is really cool, and 9 times out of 10 isn't going to try to make you feel bad about anything when it comes to the game. They're going to try to build you up as a player. They're going to try to build you up as a part of the community. But I think that while we try to support each other as a community, sometimes we forget that the company is kind of part of that community too. I get that lately there's been concerns about lack of communication and some decisions that have been made or why those decisions were made. And I feel like sometimes we need to treat the company as a part of the community as well, and maybe understand that we're not always going to have all the information. And sometimes things have to be accepted with a bit more grace than sometimes the vocal minority would handle things with. Again, I'm not trying to cast aspersions on anybody or point fingers or say that the company's always right, because absolutely not. The company can make mistakes. The company has made mistakes, I believe. In my personal opinion, especially, I think canceling webcam regionals is a mistake. I do think that shouldn't be happening. But like I said, I don't have all the information. Maybe they're going to replace it with more in-person events next year. because everything this year is kind of on the books. So maybe next year we're going to get more in-person major regionals. That would be absolutely dope. I would love that. Because usually I'm traveling to the other side of the country. Granted, I live split in the middle of the country, but that's still a lot of money to go to Vegas or Atlanta, or thank God Nationals is in Texas because I can just drive down there for a couple of hours. But yeah, I see some errors in my personal opinion. I just don't think we should try to tear down the company for it. Absolutely hold them to account, and make your voices heard, but I think we should make our voices heard in a more, I don't want to say respectful, but in a way that's not going to cause panic to the fledglings in our community. I think we, as the more experienced players, or old heads as they're kind of called, those of us who are kind of really in deep, I feel not responsible, maybe responsible, but I feel like it's our duty to hold the company accountable for their actions and question them when we feel they need to be questioned, but not cause panic among the fledglings, the newer people. Kind of like if there's a dangerous situation and the adults have to handle it, but they don't want the kids to panic, how they will handle things kind of quietly or in a way that they know the kids are watching. We can't scare the kids, but we do need to handle this situation. Something like that, where we can maybe message people in the company and say, hey, just, here's some thoughts about this, or have you thought about this? One thing, I don't remember who reached out to me, but after the first season, I think it was when the first season's breakdown of all the point systems and stuff came out. I think someone from the company reached out to me via Discord. Let me look real quick. Again, this is messy. I apologize. If you made it this far, God bless you. Yeah, I have no idea who reached out to me, but someone reached out to me. I think I deleted the message, but it might have been Jelly, the former head of Organized Play, but reached out to me and asked what my thoughts were. Granted, this is someone from the company asking me, a player, what my thoughts on the Organized Play system was. And one, as a player, that made me feel incredibly important. Not like, oh, my opinion's above everyone else, but the fact that they reached out and asked me, hey, as a player, what are your thoughts? Is there anything you think we could do better? Granted, at the time, I didn't know, because I hadn't started experiencing this Organized Play system yet for this season, so I didn't really have a lot of feedback. But anyone at UVS Games, if for some reason you're watching this and you've made it this far, I think that's a great idea. Just have some people, either from Organized Play or what have you, just reach out to players. It doesn't have to be necessarily content creators, but maybe just sample a couple of people a week and say, hey, what are your thoughts on the state of Organized Play? What are your thoughts on the state of game design? And I'm not saying you have to take everything as gospel or, always listen to the community, because sometimes the community doesn't know what's best for it. I mean, everyone has their own opinion. But just having my opinion asked for, even if I know it's just like a poll or, a chart of, hey, this many people think this is good, you get feedback at least. And that could be a very constructive way to open up that dialogue between company and community, where it could encourage an open dialogue of, hey, if you have questions or concerns, here's an email address you can send these things to. Not necessarily like a suggestion box, but hey, we have some concerns about, no webcam regionals because of XYZ. Is there a way you can clarify something? And then maybe, a press release or an article can be released about that. Because I do think communication is key. As someone who likes to have as much information as possible, communication is absolutely key. And that just goes both ways between the company and the community. We, of course, have to make our voices heard. If something doesn't sit well with us, albeit it should be done respectfully, and the company has to let us know what's going on, even if there's not a lot they can say, because obviously there's like non-disclosure agreements, there's things they can't say, obviously, about some things that are going on, but we need more than just one article saying like, this is kind of something we're thinking of, but like more breakdowns as to the why behind some ideas could even help put more minds at ease. Even if it's simple, or even if we don't like the why, at least we would know at that point. I don't know. I think I've rambled a lot, and this is probably going to be a bomb of a video. I apologize. If you made it this far, I appreciate it. I love you guys. I've been getting a lot of feedback on my videos lately. So everyone who's been interacting with me on Discord and through YouTube, you guys are great. This whole past couple of days has been absolute chaos for me. And then today I've just been getting a lot of good positive feedback and a lot of cool interactions with people. And that's really done a lot to bolster my mood. So thank you guys. The community is still helping me, and I appreciate that. So I kind of just, I'm going to bring this long and rambling video to a close. And, I'm the UVS Hermit, and I'm still going to be here. And I really hope that you guys are too. Because can't have the game without you. Take care, guys.